the trading post. You must learn, flip cards, comics, profits you earn. Rookies to legends, we break it all down. Teaching you the hustle that runs this town. Analyze the flips, predict who's hot. Bowman autos, refractors, the chase don't stop at the trading post. You must learn. Knowledge builds fortune, now it's your turn.
All right, this is your Uncle Rob, and welcome to another episode of the Trading Post. Today, I got my man Shore Guy on the line, and he's going to tell us a little about what he does on the shore. Is that the Jersey Shore? Which shore is that?
So the funny thing is the vast majority of my friends actually live on the South Shore of Massachusetts.
Okay.
I'm a little bit more inland. I actually can't quite claim the South Shore, but together as a group, we're on the South Shore.
You're on the South Shore. All right. Well, tell me, so I know you are into a variety of collectibles. Let's start with sports, what you got right behind you, some vintage old school baseball.
That's right, man.
Um, how'd you get into that? And I mean, you got a nice little display up there. I mean, do you trade or you just collect? What goes on?
Yeah, man. So I guess I could kind of just start from where I got started, how I got into the hobby itself. This is back, early 90s, mid 90s, is when I first started collecting. And that could be as, from anything from going into a toy store, begging my parents for Pokemon cards, to actually going to local card shops. I vividly remember picking out A-Rod cards, thinking that he would go to the Red Sox, and he obviously ended up going to the Yankees. But I've always been a collector. I didn't really get into vintage probably until probably early 2000s. And that was when my uncle Jim, shout out Uncle Jim, but he had actually given me his entire collection. And that included like Thurman Munson's, Collier Skremski's, some Reggie Jacksons, a Ty Cobb. So that's when I really started to get into the vintage game. But as you can kind of see, like everyone around me, so like family, friends, and just people I've come across have all kind of played a very interesting role when it came to my card collecting. So I can't take credit for all of it. This uncut sheet of 1989 tops was actually just given to me by my wife's grandfather, so my grandfather-in-law. He's been a big time collector. He has one rule when it comes to collecting. He mainly focuses on signed baseballs, but the one rule is that he has to meet them in person.
Mm.
So if you were actually to see the lineup of players that he's been able to get signed baseballs from, it's every Hall of Famer that you could possibly imagine. So he actually gifted this to me for Christmas. But yeah, like I said, it's been now a 25-year journey of constantly collecting throughout the years. I don't do a ton of trading. I don't do a ton of selling either, that's probably on me, outside of just like bulk. But yeah, I'm a big time collector. I love having the things. I love displaying it as well. So I always kind of think of it as just like another form of art, right?
Yeah. Well, no, that's good. That's a great perspective because a lot of our guests are into selling cars. They trade basically. They buy for profit. And the
Of
fact
course,
that
yeah.
yeah, and the fact that a lot of your stuff is probably 70s, 80s and all. I mean, they printed so much of that stuff that it's not a lot of well, except for the Hall of Famers, probably not a lot of
Exactly, yeah.
value to anyone other than the collector. Like I've got some Pittsburgh Steelers stuff, I've got some Raiders stuff, and some Dolphin stuff that I just have because I grew up with those teams and I like those teams and I like those players.
Yeah, of
So
course.
yeah, no, I can understand that. Um, now I looked at your profile and you've got some interesting stuff. I saw a 1999 Burger King what is it?
The
Mewtwo?
Mewtwo card, yep.
Yeah. Tell me about that.
That card I actually got literally from the drive-through, and I have been able to sustain that since my childhood.
Mhm.
But yeah, at that time, I think when the first Pokemon movie was coming out, and professionally, I'm a marketer, so I can always appreciate a good marketing plan. But what they did to kind of promote the very first Pokemon movie to their target audience, which was young kids like myself, was that in any of those Burger King kids meals the toy that you would receive was actually a gold-plated Pokemon card. that came with a certificate of authenticity. It was in a Pokeball, so it came in a nice display. Little did they know that, like I said, like 30 years later, that would still hold quite a bit of value. So yeah, that's actually like a really unique piece, and that's one of if I ever see any of those gold cards out in the wild, like I will immediately pick that up. Really cool piece of just card collecting history, and there's really no other way that you could get it other than going to the Burger King drive-through and annoying your parents, even though Burger King's probably not the healthiest of choices.
Right.
That's why I didn't catch all of them. I only got a few of them, but yeah, man, it was that goes all the way back to 1999.
So was there a series? Are there multiple different characters?
I believe I'll have to check. I want to say there's maybe 14. You have like Charizard's in there, Pikachu's in there, Mewtwo, Togepi, I think Poliwhirl as well, Jigglypuff. So there are a number of other ones out there. They all kind of vary in terms of value nowadays, with
Mhm.
Charizard being definitely the most expensive out of all of them. But yeah, it's like it's a very unique piece, something you don't often come across, but holds a ton of historical value, and I definitely love that about it.
Yeah, no, that's a great thing to have. I can't imagine what it would be worth, and just just the whole fact that you kept it and you have it, and it's looks mint condition too. So
Yeah, it looks fantastic, man.
yeah,
Looks great on display too.
yeah,
I actually that's probably one I should probably send into grading. You
yeah,
can't really scuff that up too much. It's in pretty good shape. So yeah,
yeah. Now, when we talk about things that are like not necessarily, you can't really scuff them up. I saw a Thanos medal.
that's right.
Tell me about that, because I'm a sports guy and I really prospect sports rookies. I buy rookie cards and, and I basically flip them. I don't hold a whole lot of cards that I buy from that respect, but I'm starting to get more into, I bought a comic book collection recently
Nice.
and I I I just got exposed to this. It's a magic release of a Spider-Man series. Just got some real cool
Yeah,
cards
man.
in it. And
Really cool cards in that.
yeah, I saw some real cool cards in there. So I may start getting into because I mean I'm feeling childlike again.
Yeah, yeah, that's
And
why we're all in this, man.
yeah, and I saw that Thanos. Tell me about that. And what is the metal? Is that the brand?
Yeah, that was actually a series of 90s cards that Fleer had released. And I actually believe like there's metal basketball, football, like you can actually get a number of those 90s cards for fairly cheap. Um, I happen to, that was actually one I picked up a little bit later. One thing I do want to kind of mention too, or just talk about is the kind of barrier to entry just to get into the hobby. That was actually a yard sale pickup, if I'm not mistaken. Just kind of came in a lot of cards that were in still really good condition. Thanos is obviously just a character that holds a ton of social capital. When it comes to just overall popularity, you of course have all of the Avengers movies that he was in. They make memes out of him now as well, so you're even getting the internet kind of involved with that character. So when I saw that card, it's obviously a beautiful card in itself, has that kind of really metallic, holographic look to it. But I saw Thanos, and that's probably the goat of superheroes in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah,
Obviously from a bad guy perspective, he's not a
right.
superhero, he's a villain,
Super
but
villain. Yeah, it's the
yeah,
same thing.
exactly. But it was one of those cards that I came across just in the yard sale. And it was one of those things, I'm not gonna not pick that up. Came in just a lot of cards, and I saw it, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna get that graded. It's gonna look great on display.
Yeah. No, that's great. Now, I also saw a passion of mine, which are dragons. And I got introduced to Charizard on my last podcast. I had no
I
idea
saw
who,
that actually.
yeah, I had
You
no
got the
idea
tat.
who the Pokemon characters were, right? So
Yeah,
I actually bought one from Rex at that show that he was at, and I picked up a couple more since then. But
very nice.
then there's some Yu-Gi-Oh dragon dude I saw on your page.
That's right.
Who's this guy? He looks a little vicious. I like he's aggressive. And what's the difference between a Yu-Gi-Oh and a Pokemon card.
So so the card that you're referring to is the Blue Eyes White Dragon.
Mhm.
Um, Kind of, among Yu-Gi-Oh cards, I would argue it's probably the most popular character within Yu-Gi-Oh. There's a few others like Exodius, Red Eyes Black Dragon is another one,
Okay.
Dark Magician. So you have kind of a wide range of different characters that have also been popularized under Yu-Gi-Oh. In terms of the difference between Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon, I think they're just kind of two different universes, to be quite honest. I'm much more well-versed when it comes to Pokemon,
Mhm.
but Yu-Gi-Oh was always kind of just a secondary anime show that I had kind of gotten into when I was a younger kid. And of course, it just came alongside these really cool looking cards. And like yourself, dragons are just really cool. So myself as a kid, I'm gonna pick that up every
Yeah.
day. So I started to actually collect some of those blue eyes. I think I'm up to six or seven right now. But yeah, it's just like it was the main villains. It was maybe I'm a villain guy, but it was the main villains, main card that he would play. I
Mhm.
think the other difference when it comes to Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon is there's of course like outside of just collecting, there's the actual card game itself. I would argue that Yu-Gi-Oh is probably more of a traditional card game, much like that of Magic. You have that with Pokemon too, but I think Pokemon right now is just um, so heavily focused on either co the collector or the investor, more so than that of actually playing the game itself.
Mhm. So, from your perspective, because you've been involved since childhood, it sounds, do you see the trend of Pokemon maybe slowing down, or do you see maybe the Magics and the Yu-Gi-Ohs catching up? Because I know they do have strong fan bases as well. I mean, as far as the demand for the cards.
You know, I've learned to not bet against Pokemon.
Okay.
Since I was a child, that I never thought it would become as big as it is now, and I think it's now, well, like as a company itself, I think it's over $100 billion in total valuation.
Mhm.
So just knowing that, it's probably the biggest entertainment company in the world, you can argue. So it's kind of difficult to bet against it. I also think too, just in terms of the age group that is really focused on Pokemon, and it's people like myself who just we grew up with it, just in our binders, and would be. I mean, I remember as a kid literally bringing my binder to baseball games and to to a variety of sports games to trade with my friends after the game. So I think that piece of nostalgia is always going to be extremely strong. With the call it millennial, Gen X, and even more recent age groups. So I kind of find it difficult to even imagine it going away. I'm sure it
Mhm.
will slow down just because to some degree. I don't see it taking like any nosedives or even a significant drop. I think it's one of those things where, again, it holds so much social capital, in the nostalgic factor, for people, my age who, now that we have some money and can spend and rebuy our childhood, I think that
Mhm.
you're going to see that continue, for quite some time.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would agree it's probably pretty stable for a while. But I do think that the nostalgic value, the fact that you guys grew up with the characters, I mean, the cards mean something. When you guys are trading them, I'm assuming that you were trading them based on trying to get the strongest people, the ones you might have wanted, this kind of thing. And I think the newer generation is just in it for the maybe the artwork, how it looks, and how much they're worth, you
Definitely.
know. So I think some of that nostalgia dies and then it becomes more of a fatty trend when you guys pass off. But you've got generations before you guys pass off. You got at least 2 or 3 decades
That's
before
right.
most of
Yeah.
you guys are out of the market, you know. I mean, I was born in the 60s, so I see it a little bit differently, but I understand, I understand it. Now, did Yu-Gi-Oh and all come out at the same time or a little later, or how did that progress? And I think Magic would be the newest.
I actually think Magic has, and I'll have to check. Magic may have been I think they were all roughly around the same time. I think Pokemon was 1995 or 1996. I have to take a
Okay.
look at the cards, but Yu-Gi-Oh was honestly around that same time. So I have I think it's 1996 Yu-Gi-Oh cards as well.
Mhm.
Magic the Gathering, for some reason, and I don't want to misspeak here, but they're either around for the exact same amount of time as well, or potentially precedes it.
Oh,
I
really?
need to, again, I actually need to go take a look. I'd say Magic the Gathering is probably that kind of third in line to, in terms of that non-sports cards. Um, so I've never personally gotten into Magic that much, but they all did come around basically at the same time.
Okay. And this is just a market research thing for me.
Yeah, of course.
Thinking from the outside looking in, because I see this merger of characters, I mean, I would just assume it was more wizardy or whatever, but to tie in this Marvel thing, you've got
Yeah.
people like me interested in it now, so
A
uh
question for you, actually, really quick. Are you a fan of The Office?
um I've seen it, I don't watch a lot of television, but it's a pretty good sitcom. I've seen it. Yeah. It's
So
funny.
they actually just like Magic the Gathering just released, and you can check this out. They actually just released a Dwight, like a character from The Office,
Hmm.
now has Magic cards. So I do have to say, and to your point, that kind of Marvel integration and collaboration that they've had,
Hmm.
so cool. But they've also done it for Lord of the Rings. They're now doing it for seemingly The Office. So they're really kind of that they're the only card collecting game that's kind of broadened itself to other ends of the hobby,
Yeah.
and to other ends of entertainment. So I do have to, give them a quick shout out there. Like
Yeah.
really cool integration, really cool collabs there.
Yeah, no, and I see that maybe as an entry point to maybe not get into trying to collect the original Magic the Gatherings, but these things, since they're just coming out, you can get in, even if demand's a little high because of how Pokemon is, I think they do have a few cards that get up there, but I think that might be something I'll get into, just trying to grab,
Do it, man.
especially
Yeah.
the Marvel stuff. I mean, I
Yeah, it's
wasn't
so
into the
cool.
Lord of the Rings, but and I think when you get more human things too, I mean, fan bases of those, especially if they throw some autos in there, uh, gathering people, throw some autos of these people if you're doing the office and all, you might really have something there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for
Uh,
sure.
yeah. So tell us a little bit about whatever you might want the audience to know about your collection, what you're doing, and just maybe um, good ways to enter the hobby. I mean, you started with yard sale type stuff and all, but what would you tell a young person that wanted to get in the hobby from your perspective, not from a flipper's perspective, but from someone that just loves the hobby, loves cards, loves collecting? Um, What's the
Yeah, for
best way to
sure.
get in, especially with how all this stuff costs?
Yeah, so I think that was so my journey through card collecting, it really started when I was younger, like I said. I did take a little bit of a hiatus probably until when everyone else kind of got back into it around, 2020, 2021, kind of give or take during COVID. But it was at that time where, I re-entered the hobby, and then I started to see those prices for sealed product just skyrocket. And even today, like a new set of Pokemon recently released, you can't get it anywhere. And then you'll go to an actual local card store, and they're already jacking up the prices to what the market is showing. So they're not selling at MSRP. And that makes it very difficult to buy a single pack of cards where, pack of cards, you're getting what, 10, 12 cards in there. You're spending $20 for one single pack. For me, that's just not a good use of money. And chances are, if you're in it for the value, it may not be there. Actually, chances are definitely against you that it's not
Right.
going to be there.
Right.
So what I've always tried to do is find areas of, where people are selling that I'm not going to find too much competition. So that's that of yard sales and garage sales. Those are typically just people who are trying to get rid of stuff.
Mhm.
So I have been able to acquire a lot of valuable cards just through that alone. And then just buying singles, find the cards that you like and what makes you happy. I think that that's probably the biggest thing when it comes to collecting is if you aren't actually having a good time, if you're not happy, then you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
So I really think that that's also a very important piece. So I think if you can combine those two, finding ways to try to get into the hobby at an inexpensive way where you can still acquire more cards at a cheaper cost, while having fun. Like I personally love buying people's collections that are just trying to offload it, trying to sell. I'll buy lots of cards, like a full lot that somebody would be selling at a yard sale, and I'll spend 2 hours going through that entire lot. But I find that fun and just trying to, it's part of that hunt.
Mm.
And I've always found that that's a really good way of collecting a lot of these, more higher value cards, than having to try to rip pack after pack after pack. And then next thing you know, you're like $500 in the hole and you have a bunch of cards you don't actually want.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, do you go to local shows at all?
I go to a few. I have seen you talk about Collectiverse. I would love to go to that too.
Okay.
I saw that that's coming up in February.
Yeah.
I am right near Card Vault by Tom Brady. Tom Brady actually bought a card shop here, um, in Boston. It's actually now expanded nationally. They have a number of different stores, but they host the Causeway Card Show. So I've gone to that a number of times. Um, Outside of that, though, that's probably the next stop is in my collecting journey is trying to network a little bit, like people like yourself, and try to get more into the social aspect of things. So trying to go to more shows. I haven't been to a ton, maybe only a handful at this time, but it's definitely something on my roadmap.
Yeah. Because I would say my buddy Scott and we do quite a few shows and we travel sometimes, especially up and down the West Coast. And we buy, well, Scott does, he buys product. And there's a lot of cards in there. He's got a whole big box of stuff he sells for 50 cents or a dollar. And that's a lot. There are a lot of good players in there. I'm saying for people
Yeah,
that would like to start in just if you're just collecting, and you're not really trying to make a lot of money. It's just about collecting the players you like or trying to get a whole team or whatever it is. Because that's what I used to do. I used to try to get the whole team. I remember the
right.
Cincinnati Reds was so good back in the day. I wanted that whole team at one point. Um, so that kind of project, which I think helps build some of the foundation, that nostalgic foundation. Those are also avenues. I know my daughter's getting
100%.
into Pokemon, and she likes to rip on she videos like these popular people are trying to video what they hit, but there's a lot of things in there that aren't worth a lot of money, so you can still get those cards for a dollar or 50 cents from her, even when she goes
For
to
sure.
shows with us. So that might be a good entry point as well. Yeah.
I would also just throw it out there too, and there are a number of platforms. I think one that's very popularized at this point, is Whatnot.
Hmm.
I have had quite a bit of success there, just in, people. I've never known where to go for people who are clearing out storage units or something or any of that nature. Like I've always seen that stuff on TV and thought like, wow, these people are pulling out these crazy things. How do I possibly participate in that? Um, and Whatnot has kind of been able to bring that to a lot of people.
Okay.
So, I'm pretty active there, on a almost daily basis, just trying to see if I can find people who are trying to sell collections of cards and you'd be surprised how many people just don't want to deal with the hassle. They simply just, they bought a storage unit. Their entire goal is to just sell for whatever is in there for a profit.
Mhm.
So if they're selling like a huge lot of Pokemon cards for $20, for me, that's a great deal. I have to go and take the time, look through it all, price it out, and all of that stuff. But again, like that's something that I personally enjoy, and I have been able to find some kind of, hidden gems just by doing that. So I also think too, just because of how technology has evolved, we can now participate in a lot of those, kind of storage cleanouts and virtual garage and yard sales, that we typically wouldn't be able to, years ago. So I have had a lot of success there as well.
Okay. Well, that's a great idea. I mean, I've heard of the Whatnot platform. People have been talking to me about it. I guess they do all kinds of stuff on it. Some people hold these little auctions and everything else on there. So, but
That's right.
I hadn't gotten to it. Do you ever buy on eBay or any of those platforms?
Yeah, of course. I mean, if I'm getting anything graded or if I'm getting a higher value card, I'm going directly to eBay. That's because I mean eBay has they have the authenticity guarantee, just to ensure they have a smooth, transaction and and process there. So I have personally always felt that either going to a card show, from a reputable vendor, buying a single there that you were really going after, or going to eBay, that's always worked out great for me. I typically reserve that for the very like high value ones that I'm actively seeking because I want that security that I know that I'm getting, what I'm paying for.
So do you find that on Whatnot or some of these other platforms that you don't get what you ask for all the time, or you're just conscious of the risk?
I'm definitely conscious of the risk. And I think just the nature of how the platform is, it can be quite addictive. It's very easy to all of a sudden just keep swiping because you're just bidding on cards. And next thing you know, if you all of a sudden look at your bank account, you're like, I did not mean to spend 50 bucks there. Like, what the hell? So I've always tried to be very pointed and very yeah, pointed when it comes to buying cards there, knowing that there's going to be a potential risk. But yeah, you'll see somebody kind of fan out a binder, and they'll kind of like show the cards and be like, oh, well, this is up for auction, this is up for bid, and then people start to bid on it. The thing is, I've definitely bought binders and there are clearly fake cards in there, or there's fan art, may have looked good on camera, so there is no doubt a risk when it comes to that. However, the pros have definitely outweighed the cons when it comes to buying off of that, um, if you go about it the right way.
Yeah. So it's basically a buyer beware. Don't have a
100%.
limit. Know that this could be a gem. You know, you might find a hidden gem or you might get a lemon, but stay in your budget. Don't overspend on that kind of platform.
It's about as close to gambling as I'll get, is buying like a lot of cards for like 80 bucks or something like that. Like that's probably the most you'll ever see me gamble. But that's like, yeah, definitely buyer beware. But if you have some money that you're okay with spending, it is a place where you can get some really cool cards and gems.
Okay. Well, I mean, it sounds like your collection is yours to keep. But do you want to share like your social media or any information just so that people, whatever you decide to share with the world, they can find you and see what you have?
Yeah, absolutely. It is at Shore Guy Collectibles on Instagram. That's currently all that I have right now. I'd love to build out a website. I'd love to build out even a Whatnot presence, perhaps become a seller on there, and I think break through a lot of that clutter and try to help those who are trying to get into the hobby in a more cost-effective way. So yeah, currently just on Instagram, but we'll see what happens in the next couple months and if I can continue to grow this account out.
Okay, well, we're gonna post that up, and I want you to send me your logo so we can put your logo up so they'll know what they're who they're looking for.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
And I mean, unless you have something else you want to say, I'm out of questions, but you can feel free to add or close this with whatever message you want to give to our listeners.
No, I mean, I just want to give you a quick shout out. I think for people who are just trying to share their passion for the card collecting game, like I was, flattered and honored to have you reach out and so cool to have this conversation. I hope it's the first of many. Hope that we can start to kind of build a relationship here. The only other thing that I do want to quickly call out, and I did pull up some stats. I had mentioned that to you. So I just need to kind of rattle a few of these off. And this is for anybody that is potentially looking to get into the card collecting game and to just provide some sort of reassurance. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to rattle off a few things here.
Okay.
And this is just the state of the market. So according to the Wall Street Journal and Card Ladder, Pokemon cards have a 3,821% cumulative return since 2004. In comparison, the S&P 500 showed a 483% return in that same time period. Meta platforms like Facebook have only climbed 1,844%. So Pokemon cards since 2004 have outperformed the S&P 500 and Facebook. Well-known public figures are also entering the space as well. We have Logan Paul. He made that outrageous $5.3 million purchase of the Pokemon Illustrator card a few years ago. And then most recently, Kevin O'Leary bought that one-of-one Jordan and Kobe dual patch auto Logo Man. And that was for $13 million, breaking the all-time record in August. The last thing I want to share, and I thought that this was a crazy, crazy stat. So this past July, Card Ladder reported that there is a record of $308 million spent on online cards across 5.5 million transactions. And then the following month, which is literally this last month, no more than 30 days ago, Card Ladder reported that that record was absolutely shattered with $416 million worth of card sales in August. So that's a 35% increase month over month. The reason why I bring this up is that anyone who is questioning whether or not to get into the hobby, there's clearly money here, there's clearly attention, and people are legitimizing it on a daily basis with these huge sales from notable figures. It is no longer just some kind of throwaway hobby like, oh, I got some cards. Like they actually hold legitimate value and people are seeing them as a legitimate alternative investment. So I always think that that's super cool. I think it's a sign that we are in the right place. So definitely not leaving anytime soon. Be here for a while. But yeah, I just wanted to share those with you and the audience.
Yeah, I want people to realize that. I mean, this is something that not only can you can this asset gain, or will it, I mean, this asset will gain, but it's also something that you personally can get involved in. You personally probably know more about investing in this particular product, the one that you like, the one that you follow, than you do investing in a company that you're not in their boardroom, you're not really reading through their annual reports. You're just
That's right.
trusting that, it's a popular company that your financial advisor has recommended. I'm not suggesting that you don't balance and you don't participate in your 401k, but I am saying that the other investments that you have an IRA, you have other discretionary investments or things that you do. I mean, this is definitely an option for you. And I mean, I do it. I invest heavily in cards and to the point that I'm actually starting to host shows. And I'm at the point in my career where I mean, I'm going to retire from my primary occupation soon, and this is all
Oh,
I'll be
God bless.
doing,
That's amazing. That's
and this
amazing.
is all I'll be doing.
Congratulations, man. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Thank you. Well, I mean, I got a couple years. I still got a teenager to get out of school, a couple teenagers to get out of school, but then I'm out of there,
That's
and I'm
awesome.
full time into the card business. So, but no, I appreciate that wisdom. It's exactly what we want people to understand. And we will definitely create a relationship. There'll be more conversations like this, don't worry. And
Awesome, man.
yeah, we'd love to see you at Collectiverse. If you want to come out, let us know. We'll
Hey,
make sure
man.
you can get
Yeah, I
out
got
of
to
here.
bring some of the Boston Nets. We just beat the Yankees. I can't complain right now.
Yeah. All right. Well, look, I appreciate your time, and I'll talk to you soon.
Awesome. I appreciate you, Uncle Rob. Thank you very much for having me on.
All right, no problem. Thank you.
Have a good one.
All right, you too.